Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. About a month ago I got the chance to visit Colonial Williamsburg in Williamsburg, Virginia. Absolute crazy amount of fun, and we went to see a bunch of shops. And so this is actually the last one in the whole series. If you want to see that, I'll have links to all of them down below. But this time we're actually going to the Wheelwright shop. You could say it's the hub of the whole operation. Let's dive in.
Why don't you tell me a little about yourself and what do you do?
Paul Zalesnikar. I'm the master wheelwright here at Colonial Williamsburg. Our shop produces anything rolling through town. Carts, wagons, coaches, farm equipment like plows, wooden machinery, different types of millwright work, and we do it all with 18th century technology.
Part of the mission of the shop is a little bit of archaeology and playing with the past. What are the interesting things you found or that you enjoy doing?
Every project is similar but different in that we are always looking at as many extant pieces as we can. The problem with work vehicles is that there are very, very, very few extant carts and wagons from the 18th century. So we have to rely on artwork. So we'll take artwork from the era and reverse engineer it and turn it into a working product. So behind me is a great example of that. We've been commissioned by a museum to build a cart. The image right there is actually the image that we're working off of. So through the apprenticeship, we learn how to reverse engineer based on existing things that we can create a dimension off of and then actually create something that works using techniques and joinery techniques of the era, fasteners from the era, which are made by our blacksmith shop.
What are the what is an interesting tool that you use that is different or fun?
The thing about wheelwrighting in the pre-industrial era is a lot of our toolkit is very similar to other woodworking trades. It's just how we use it and how we go about it. Probably the tools we're using to measure, so things like circumference, where most people don't need to measure circumference of things. We need to measure the iron hoop or tire that goes around the perimeter of the wheel. So there we'll use a tool called a traveler, which is right there. You count the number of revolutions of the small wheel around, in our case, the greater wheel, and then that measurement is transferred to a bar of iron by a blacksmith. We'll cut it, we'll bend it, and right before it's welded, we'll take a certain amount out. The blacksmith will cut the iron to length, bend it, and right before it's welded, I'll tell him how much to subtract out of it. Once it's welded, we'll get it back, heat up the iron in a fire. We usually do it outside. It expands in the heat, put it on the wheel, and then quickly cool it down, and it squeezes all the parts together. So the butt joint between the fellies closes up. Everything is forced back in towards the center, and it makes it a strong, durable piece.
So what are the parts of the wheel?
So in a wheel, you've got three parts: the nave or stock, also today called a hub, spoke, and then the felly. It's spelled F-E-L-L-O-E, but actually if you look at the Old English spelling as well as the way things are pronounced, it's a very phonetic spelling at the period. It is pronounced felly. Today people call them fellows, and in the United States sometimes people call them fellers. I've heard some old timers call it, but we know from reading at the period that felly is actually the more common pronunciation.
And for Owen's sake, what are the different woods used?
The center of the wheel is out of elm, and we choose it because it's a very difficult wood to split. This is American elm we're using. White oak for the spoke, for its strength. You consider that you're dealing with end-to-end stress, so a nice, long, tight, straight grain wood works best for that. And then the fellies are often out of ash. You could use oak, you could use elm if you've got a straight enough piece. Beech is sometimes used. This one's a little more of a wild card on the rim. Body work is often in ash because it's strong, it's lightweight, has a bit of give to it. And then we're using poplar or sometimes pine for flooring and paneling of vehicles.
Was tapered axles a thing back then?
Very common at the period. And of course I say that now, and this is the exception we're doing for this vehicle.
That's all I was wondering if that was...
No, more often than not, you're going to have tapered wooden axles or tapered iron axles. And then what goes in the hub, which is often referred to as a box, is either a full cone or two ends of a cone, split box as they're often called. These are made by our foundry up the road. Cast iron, cast bronze sometimes. So again, these go into the hub, and then this runs on metal plates on the wooden axle. And then between those two surfaces is a layer of grease, which we make here on site out of sheep tallow. We have a lot of sheep in the museum, and a bit of pine tar, just to give it a little stickiness. Cool. It works tolerably well when you're at the walking pace of an animal.
So then if people are coming to visit visit Colonial Williamsburg and coming here, what was something you want them to know or be looking for when they arrive?
How useful wheelwrighting was throughout most of history, and our shop, even in 2026, as we are still needed. Everything in and around this shop is a current project. None of it is a display. None of it's a decoration or demonstration. This is an active shop, much like any modern mechanic shop. And what I love about Colonial Williamsburg is how much reality is here. People visit here with the notion that it's pretend or fantasy, and I like to tell folks that very, very little is fantasy. Most of what you're seeing is actually happening in front of you. And it's great. I've been here 24 years, and I still love that part about this job, is how real everything is. I get to make things for a living, and I'm only making them because somebody wants it or needs it, not because I thought it would be fun or cool.
That reminds me of one other question I need to ask. So you make wheels, and everyone thinks Wheelwright makes wheels. Mm-hmm. Do you make the whole carriage, or
the whole vehicle?
So is there any collaboration other than the blacksmith?
Most of the time, it's just the blacksmith shop. This project's interesting because I have a canvas top or tilt that goes on the vehicle. So I've commissioned the tailor shop up the road to stitch up the canvas for it. They're holding on to it now for me so it doesn't get filthy in the shop. So that'll be the last thing we acquire from them. But it's one of the neatest things about our department with the trades. We have so many trades in town, so many specialists. If we were to do carriage work and there was ornate carving, which you do see on occasion, I would contract either the cabinet shop or the joiner shop to do some of the carving. Any decorative artwork, our engraving shop can do that. We really are a one-stop shop of pre-industrial work. And we can do an entire carriage from soup to nuts in this one place without having to farm the work out.
After the interview, Owen and I got to spend a time working around in the shop, and it was really fascinating to see a shop working the way it would have worked over 250 years ago, to see some of the tools and things in use, and to actually see the functioning of how things happen. Like this fireplace, it's there to heat the coffee, because no shop works without coffee. But we even got a chance to play around and try some different tools. Owen liked using the broad axe, and I got the chance to pull out a draw knife. This one was very interesting in that it was wider, and it was used so that you could have a longer draw stroke on it, so you can actually shear across and move on it. It was a lot of fun to play with it and try different methods, especially this method, holding it in place. You actually put it into a pin on the bench, and your gut holds it there. Kind of cool. But anyone can come to Williamsburg and actually walk around the shop just like we're doing. You can interact with them and see what they're doing on a daily basis. And not just this shop, but all of the others around Williamsburg. And it is a fantastic opportunity. I really had a lot of fun with it, especially this. Boiled linseed oil and pigment makes paint. And that's pretty much all that goes into this. They would find different ochres and different pigments, add some linseed oil, and apply it to a surface, and it made a paint. Some of them, they actually had to import the different pigments, and some of them they were able to make locally. And it was kind of interesting to find out that, yes, 250 years ago, they still imported some things. So here you can see they actually have this stone that has been flattened to a flat surface. Then you can add a little bit of oil and work it back and forth until you get just the right consistency you're looking for. And this is how they made the pigment to actually paint the wagons and the carriages that they're making in the shop. And they make it all on site just like they used to. You can see all the jugs and containers around for holding it and working it back and forth. And yes, you can make paint. Seeing some of the intricacies of how wagons go together, like these wear plates that would go inside of the hub, and all the little details around the shop that make this whole place came to life. And it's one of the things I love about Colonial Williamsburg. Just a lot of fun to walk around and explore and see what the world used to look like. One of the things that fascinated me for the whole visit is just how interconnected all of them were. Just as today there are so many things that have to be made in order to make what I want to make, there was back then. And a lot of things had to be imported across the ocean 300 years ago. It's kind of the same as it was back then, except for people tended to make a little bit more of what they used on a daily basis, and so you could actually go to the Wheelwright shop. And if you'd like to see others like this, we also went to the Cooper shop, as well as the Carpenter's Outbuilding and the Cabinet Maker's shop, which is a whole thing in itself. Absolutely a lot of fun. And if you're ever near Williamsburg, Virginia, you've got to stop by. It is worth an entire day or more. I could easily spend a whole week there exploring, and there's just so much to see. These 4 woodworking trades are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to all the things that are available and all the different trades that are on display. It's a lot of fun and worth your time. So if you want to find out more about that, I'll leave links to all of them down below. And I think that'll do it for now. And until next time, have a wonderful day. There's a reason you won't find many big ships docked at Williamsburg, Virginia. Most ships are afraid of bergs in the winter.